As E3 2021 approaches, we will undoubtedly be finding out at least one of the final two additions to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and given the status of the event, I feel confident in saying that whoever they add next is probably going to be a big name in the industry. Now, there's no shortage of iconic figures left to add from gaming, genre-defining names and strong modern IPs that have yet to have some kind of content in the crossover. This is their time before the floodgates close forever. However, some might argue that the biggest omission left to add to this game is shaped like a weird, orange and triangular, mutated marsupial. Of course, I am talking about Crash Bandicoot. He's been a part of Smash speculation for a while, and it's really propped up ever since the reveal that the Insane Trilogy would be coming to Nintendo platforms, in the Nintendo Direct back in March 2018. Crash certainly has enough of a star power to be amongst the current roster, and he was a pillar in the fierce competition of platforming mascots of the late 90s and early 2000s, representing the PlayStation, even though Sony never actually had any stake in the franchise other than publishing and funding its early titles. The general public just decided that Crash was Sony's mascot, the same way Mario is Nintendo's and Sonic is Sega's. Yet despite being seen as a mascot for a rival company, Crash has always been a common suggestion for Smash, dating as far back as the If There Was a Smash 2 poll, conducted in 1999, where Crash managed to place 4th in the third-party character poll, and of all the results we've seen, he's the only one from that category who has yet to be featured in Smash in some capacity, if assuming we take Doraemon out of the equation, seeing as he's not even a video game character. And of course, he was also first place overall in our Mega Poll from 2020. It's no secret that people want Crash in Smash. And Crash being associated with Nintendo isn't anything new either. Universal Interactive, who did own the Crash Bandicoot games back in the early 2000s, had no problem putting Crash out on every platform, regardless of whether it was Sony or not. This meant that Crash became sort of a mainstay on Nintendo systems since 2002, with Crash Bandicoot The Huge Adventure on Game Boy Advance. And nowadays, with the exception of Twinsanity and Crash Bash, every single Crash Bandicoot game is available in some form or another on Nintendo systems. So even though Crash is so heavily associated with one of Nintendo's competitors, he also has a history with the company, and therefore his appearance in Smash wouldn't be completely out of there, not like someone like Master Chief, who hasn't had any appearances on Nintendo systems yet. With that brief history lesson out of the way, how would Crash work in Super Smash Bros? He's certainly gone through a variety of different interpretations over the years as he moved from studio to studio, with the recent Toys for Bob take on the character being quite popular, but whether that would be his appearance in Smash depends entirely on when his inclusion was decided and what interpretation of him Sakurai considers the best look for the character. Take Pac-Man, for example, where Sakurai was dead set on his classic Pac-Land and Pac-Man World look, rather than the pizza design or, this thing. So with that in mind, and Sakurai's thoughts around characters like Sonic, Mega Man and Simon, where it's their classic games that defied their looks and or moveset, we decided to go with his Insane Trilogy interpretation for this video, as the modern image of his classic design. Although this wouldn't stop content like music and spirits being from Crash 4, as these tend to get taken from the whole franchise. Now onto the moveset. Crash would be similar to Banjo in the sense that he wouldn't have much of a gimmick. Like most of his games, he would be simple and straightforward, and reflect that late 90s era that would be the focus. But also, Crash needs to be wacky. Crash's design and demeanour is largely Looney Tunes inspired, with over-exaggerated animations that give him a ton of character. These would naturally be used in taunts, victory animations, and even his idle animation, but we can interpret them in some of his moves as well. Take his dash attack for instance, a tripping animation that you see when Crash barely makes it to a safe place while running in a chase sequence from the original trilogy. It shows Crash's silliness through his attacks and cartoon nature as well. His 3-hit combo would also be comical, as he stumbles forward with the first 2 punches before performing an exaggerated roundhouse kick to send opponents flying, a reference to Crash of the Titans. In fact, the combat of that game can inspire a lot of Crash's moves like his up and side tilt, as well as his side smash, while more classic moves like his slide attack and body slam will work for the down tilt and smash respectively. Another iconic part of the series that should also be represented are the death animations. It's long been a charm of the series, and as Mega Man got to have special death animations, I think we can do the same thing here. Like if Crash dies in a stamina match, he can turn into a ghost and float up, or if he falls off screen we hear "whoa" and a pair of shoes come flying off screen before falling back down. Silly stuff like that. However, and arguably above all of the stuff mentioned so far, it is Crash's spin that is most well known, and so it had to be in the moveset somewhere, and we've placed it as his neutral special. The attack should be very quick to come out, with practically no startup or ending lag. It's not a strong attack really, but it does decent enough knockback, enough to just get people out of the way. Despite its simpleness, the spin would be connected to a bunch of other stuff Crash can do. Certain moves like the slide down tilt can be cancelled with a spin, and if done in rapid succession in the air, it can keep Crash hovering for just a short while, something you can see in both Crash 2 and 3. There is also a variation of this move called the Death Tornado Spin, first seen in Crash 3. To achieve this, you simply mash the special attack button enough times in succession until Crash's spin appears wider and looks slightly more deadly. This variation does more damage and offers more airtime at the expense of a bit of ending lag. The final feature of the spin is a kind of double-edged sword. Don't panic Smash fans, I don't mean an actual sword. A hilarious but often frustrating aspect of the spin in Crash games is that you can accidentally knock items like Wumpa Fruits away from Crash instead of picking them up, and this is kept in Smash. Accidentally spinning near the assist trophy and you'll send it flying away. Luckily, this also works on some projectiles and items like Link's bombs, so it can be a benefit as well as a curse. Now on to the other specials, and the up special is the obligatory trampoline springy thing that every third party mascot seems to have. The bounce arrow crate would work similarly to the rush coil and sonic spring, with the difference being that it breaks after one use if used in the air as it falls and impacts the ground or an opponent. However, if used on the ground, it will remain for anyone to use, at least until it gets broken by another attack, or if Crash uses his up special again. Crash's side special also involves crates. Seeing as it's a focal point of his game, we felt like it should appear in his moveset a few times. The inspiration for this comes from a minigame in Crash Bash called the Crate Crush. Working almost like it does in Crash Bash, Crash would toss a crate in a small arc depending on its weight, and the type of crate that appears would follow a set rotation. First is a wooden question mark crate. It flies the furthest and does okay damage. It might even spawn a food item if it breaks. But it breaks immediately on impact, either when it hits the ground or another character. Next up is the TNT crate, and this would stick to opponents' heads if it landed, just like it does in the racing games, with a ticking timer of 3 seconds to explode, accompanying the iconic sound effect. The player with the TNT on their head could take advantage by running up to Crash and having the explosion hurt him as well. If the TNT crate falls on the ground instead, it will just stay there for a little bit, with the imminent danger of attacks exploding it, or someone jumping on top of it to trigger the 3-second countdown. Next is the Iron Checkpoint crate. It doesn't travel very far, being the heaviest of them all, but it has immense knockback power and damage potential. Lastly, it's the Nitro crate. This one is deadly, as it explodes on contact, either the ground or an opponent, or if an enemy attack hits it while Crash is holding it, that can also cause it to explode. In fact, this can happen to all of the crates, other than the iron one. The damage from this would be high, but the knockback would be low. After the Nitro crate, you return to the first crate for a new rotation. This move can make Crash's playstyle either very smart or very dumb, depending on how reckless the player uses it, and that's kind of like the Bandicoot himself. Next, the down special, and this is the Fruit Bazooka from Crash 3. This one is very slow, clunky, and you have to be stationary to even use it, even if he's in the air, making him fall like a rock, similar to Snake's side special. When this move is activated, the control stick can be used to aim in front or behind Crash, and pressing the special button again will allow him to fire. It's similar to the Cracker Launcher item in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, which was the best item in that game. However, for all its cons towards mobility, given the right situation, it can be used quite effectively, like when trying to prevent a fighter from getting back onto the stage. The Wumpa Fruit projectile can't pass through solid platforms, of course, but the game will make sure to show you that by making it as far as the reticle can go. And finally, the final smash, and it's a cinematic one, as most characters have these days. Crash strikes a pose and spins quickly through the stage, sweeping opponents up at his front. Whoever is caught in this is sent to the white space we see in many cinematic final smashes. The camera will show Crash comically running from a boulder as soon as the characters fall in the ground. Crash dives out the way shouting, "Whoa!" while the boulder proceeds to hit all of the other players. Now that does it for his moveset, so how about the ults? These selection of colours would be mostly based on other popular characters in the Crash series that are connected to Crash in some way. Now, there is a chance we could get a Japanese Crash skin, which is the appearance the character takes on almost every Japanese box art. But the thing is, that changes rarely within the actual game itself, with the exception being Crash Tag Team Racing, which also featured the Japanese model as an unlockable internationally, and Crash Boom Bang for the Nintendo DS, which was a game made in Japan to begin with, and had Crash's model then changed when the game was localized. So either Crash is just getting a different render in the Japanese version of Smash, or he'd have an actual model swap that everyone could use, with the default changing depending on region, like Rob having its Famicom colour palette in Japan, but the grey NES scheme anywhere else. But this still seems fairly unlikely to happen, and so we will just be sticking to the simple colour variants instead. First up is a Coco Bandicoot inspired look. Crash's fur is changed to a brighter orange tone, with a salmonish belly and matching mouth, a detail we'll see recurring through all of the colours. His shorts become a darker tone of blue to replicate Coco's overalls, and his gloves and shoes would be bright pink. His mohawk is yellow, and his eyebrows are a deep black. The next one is based on Crash's adopted older brother, Crash Bandicoot, with dark red fur, beige belly, mouth, and the shorts having a special green camouflage texture. His gloves and shoes are black, while the mohawk is a slightly darker red, almost indistinguishable from the main fur. His eyebrows again are black. This one is based on none other than the fake Crash, but specifically his Crash Nitro Kart look, to make him stand apart from Crash's default visuals. Crash's fur is a darker tone of orange, almost brown, with a yellow belly and mouth, with fake Crash's green shorts and lighter brown gloves, while his shoes are a darker red. Both his mohawk and eyebrows are a matching tone of dark brown, and if Sakurai and his team wanted to go the extra mile, they could also make fake Crash just a full model swap, giving him the big teeth, thicker eyebrows and nose, but it's not very likely for just one ult, especially as it would require its own voice clips and announcer call to really be fake Crash. Next up is Carbon Crash from Crash of the Titans. He's a character created for co-op purposes in that game, and already works as a simple colour swap of Crash. His fur is a light grey, almost white, with a light yellow belly and mouth. His shorts and gloves have a moss green colour, and his shoes are slightly darker red than the defaults. His hair and eyebrows are a deep grey. Another distant relative of the Bandicoot family is Evil Crash, of the 10th Dimension from Twinsanity. Here we have a popping red for the main fur, with a pinkish belly and mouth. His shorts remain blue, but a darker shade, going more purple in tone. Gloves and shoes are brown, almost black, the mohawk comes with a darker red tone, and the eyebrows are pure black. His eyes would also be red in this particular variant. This next though is the only one to not be based on any particular character, but a popular skin in Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, also featured in Crash on the Run, the Blue Hyena Crash. Crash's fur is blue with darker toned spots around his body, his belly is a lighter blue tone, while the mouth goes even further with yet another shade of light blue. Both the interior of his ears and his nose are pink, with the shoes matching the same tone. Gloves and shorts are yellow, with the shorts having a stained pattern all around. Both the eyebrows and the hair are a darker shade of the blue of the body. Finally, a reference to Crash's twin franchise, Spyro the Dragon, who could almost be classified as an honorary Crash Bandicoot character, as Spyro often cameos in Crash games. The main fur is a screaming purple colour, with the shorts matching, creating the illusion of a connection. The belly and mouth are a light yellow, with the shoes, gloves and hair all being gold. His eyebrows are black for contrast, and his eyes also change to purple. Now, onto the stage. A common suggestion would be Crash's home, the Insanity Island, and its starting location, Insanity Beach. One idea we had suggested to us was to have players fight on the beach as obstacles like boulders roll down a path in the middle of the stage, going from the background to the foreground. It sounds like a fun, simple stage, but with so many jungle-themed arenas in Smash already, we went for something more unique, yet iconic of the Crash series, the Time Twister machine. This was the main hub of Crash 3 Warped, and how you travelled across different times. In Smash, it will work similar to Castle Siege, warping players to iconic Crash locales across the first 3 games, offering different platform layouts and backgrounds, with Coco being the one responsible to change the scenario on the big computer in the main area. You'd start on the Time Twister machine itself, which has a simple Final Destination-esque layout, and would also be the default look for the Omega and Battlefield variant. The first place Coco would warp the player to is Insanity Beach, so we have included it still somewhere in this stage idea. It would be a recreation of the opening stage of Crash, but with a few elements of Crash 2 and even the starting area of Crash 4. No hazards and a walk-off, but some natural platforms a la Crash 4. Then players would be warped to Cold Hard Crash, or at least a stage inspired by it. The variant would feature a slippery surface on the base ground, with floating parallel platforms that offer a more stable grip that come and go like in Smashville. This stage you can fall off of, so be careful. The next area is Cortex Castle, a battlefield-like arena with rustic concrete main platform and the wands floating above hanging from chains. This allows them to be able to move ever so slightly left and right based on the momentum of the character on the platform, so you could in theory kick the platform away and prevent an opponent from landing on it, which could be funny. After this, the fighters will return to the Time Twister machine and the cycle will repeat. Naturally, you'd get several cameos on each of those variants. We mentioned Coco already in the main area, but we could also see Multiverse Torna and Crunch on Insanity Beach, Polar and Penta Penguin and maybe Dingo Dial in the snow area, and Dr. Neo Cortex along with potential appearances from Engine, Nina Cortex, Embryo as well as Entropy in the castle. Obviously, as there are so many characters, they'd appear in small groups of 2 or 3, at least with random combinations. Now let's fill that stage with music, shall we? We prioritise mainline games and having at least one song to match the locations that the stages would warp to, and then some iconic songs from throughout the series. There would probably be more than 11 songs for Crash, but for the simple sake of time, we're only going to cover 11 songs in this video. Potential remixes are highlighted in pink, and all the songs from the first 3 games that aren't remixes would come from the Insane trilogy for their better sound quality. Let's give them a listen, shall we? And just to close off this section, Crash's victory jingle would be an adapted version of the main theme of the first game. You can hear something similar in Crash on the Run when you clear a level. Crash's classic mode will be called Platforming Mayhem, and it's all about Crash facing his fellow platform mascots. I'd include Banjo here as well, but the game can't assume you have the DLC purchased in this situation. The first battle is against both Mario and Luigi on Mushroom Kingdom 64. Nothing much to say, but the brothers would be together in the stage, so it's a 1v2 battle. The second stage is Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong on Jungle Japes, but unlike Mario and Luigi, Diddy would spawn only after you defeat DK to simulate the tagging mechanic of Donkey Kong Country games. Next is Kirby and Green Greens, nothing too elaborate, just defeat your pink foe to advance. Following this is a small horde of Yoshis in front of the Super Happy Tree. 5 coloured Yoshis will take turns to fight Crash. Sonic is the next fighter in Green Hill Zone. You can literally beat Sonic's ass with the Sonic Ass game protagonist. And lastly, but not least, Mega Man on Wily's Castle. Defeat your opponent before the Yellow Devil messes everything up as usual. Crash's boss will be Giga Bowser, to keep with the theming. You'd be hearing Big Fight number 2 to evoke the Titans vibe. Now onto the spirits for this series. We've gone for an almost 50-50 split between Team Bandicoot and Team Cortex, with artwork representing characters in their earliest appearance, with one exception that we'll be pointing out. As such, Crash's fighter spirit uses a Crash Bandicoot 1 render. The first actual spirit battle is Coco Bandicoot. She's a primary neutral spirit of the Novice class, with the spirit battle being represented by a default Zero Suit Samus on Guar Plains Omega. The fight itself involves Samus and a small Incineroar. The fight's conditions are as simple as defeat the main fighter to win. When equipped, Coco gives the Psy attack up, as reflective of her smarts. Next we have Crunch Bandicoot, another primary spirit, but of the shield variety and of an ace level. The fighter representing him is a red alt Donkey Kong, while fighting on the Frigate Orphean stage. DK would be assisted by a small Squirtle, a Mii sword fighter, a Ness, and a villager. Again, the fight conditions would be defeat the main fighter to win, and there's the caveat of periodic earthquakes that will shake the stage. When equipped, the spirit gives super slow armor to the player. Now for another member of Team Bandicoot, it's Torna, but this time from her appearance in Crash 4. She's a support spirit of advanced level. The character representing her is the purple alt Sheik on the hazardless pirate ship stage. The condition would be that the enemy favours grabs and throws as a reference to the hookshot ability, and certain items will appear in large numbers as well, with this being the beetle item. The skill she provides is move speed up. Aku Aku is the first of our 2 legend support spirits. The fighter representing him in this battle will be Captain Falcon, which will make more sense shortly, I promise, and he'll be in his gold costume on the Congo jungle stage, having the invincibility effect on the occasion and defended by a CPU Crash. You have to defeat the main fighter to win, and when equipped, the Aku Aku spirit gives invincibility after eating. Dingo Dial is up next, and he is a support advanced spirit. He's represented by a brown King K. Rool on the Omega Summit stage, and he starts the fight with a super spicy curry effect, while favouring his neutral special. Defeat the half dingo, half crocodile, and you get a spirit with the skill Item Gravitation. Dr. Neo Cortex is a support advanced spirit as well, and he'll be represented by the default Dr. Mario on the Time Twister machine, specifically the Cortex Castle part of it. He starts the fight with the ray gun and is said to be weak to projectiles. Cortex's spirit will give players the ray gun when equipped. Back to the primary spirits, we have Cortex's niece Nina Cortex. She's an advanced spirit of the grab type, represented by Wendy O. Cooper, and you fight her on the Luigi's Mansion stage. The enemy will favour grabs and will occasionally turn into metal. When equipped, Nina's spirit will give the player the effect of Strong Throw. N-Jin is our last primary spirit, this time of the attack type. He's also a novice spirit, represented by Rob in his NES colours on the Lilac Crew's Omega form. He favours his forward smash, and certain items will spawn in large numbers, being the Hokotate bomb. When N-Jin is the spirit in your team, he'll give you the shooting items power up. the Time Lord himself, Dr. Entropy, is a support Ace Spirit. Represented by Shulk in his yellow costume on the Omega Wily Castle, the battle consists of him favouring his down special, and the timer item will appear in large numbers during the fight. The screen will also occasionally flip, so that's something to worry about. When equipped, his spirit will give players the black hole item at the start of any match. And finally, we have Uka Uka, the other legend support spirit. He'll be represented by a Ganondorf, which not only fits his persona, but is also the counterpart of Captain Falcon in Smash. See, I told you that would make sense. You fight him on the Time Twister machine, and he's accompanied by a Dr. Mario. You have to defeat the main fighter to win, and he'll turn invincible on occasion. He also provides invincibility when eating when equipped. Now, before we end off, let's talk Crash Mii costumes. First up is a Coco Bandicoot Brawler costume, then a Dr. Neocortex Gunner costume, complete with an N for the head that works as the headgear. There's also an Entropy Swordfighter costume with his tuning fork being the sword, and lastly, we thought a Spyro hat that replicates his head with the horns and the crest could happen as well alongside Crash. We also feel like we should mention that a Crash Suit Guy costume is also a great fit for the Miis, either as a brawler or maybe a gunner costume, using the megaphone as a gun. And there you have it, all the content from the Crash Bandicoot series that we could see in Smash. I want to thank Cyberwolf for supplying many of the graphics footage and doing the initial draft of the script. If you have any questions about this, then drop him a message on Twitter. As E3 approaches, we're going to try and speed up on our all contents, because we don't want any of the scripts we've written up to go to waste. So look forward to that, and make sure you don't miss any of them by subscribing. And also, if you like Crash and your friends like Crash, maybe share this Crash video with them. That'll be fun. Special thanks to all of our patrons. The $5 up ones are on screen right now. It's thanks to you guys that we can keep doing this. And with that, let us know what you thought of the moveset below, and don't miss out on any other raw contents by always remembering to return to the source.